It is always great to welcome in our good friend Tim Brando, Fox Sports. It is the off season for Tim. It's Masters Week. He's getting ready for some golf, but there is always time to talk about college football and college basketball. I'm Pete Mundo. Heartland College Sports is where you find us covering the Big 12. Always grateful for our radio affiliates, of course, along with our YouTube subscribers and followers, and on the podcast as well. Make sure you're subscribed and leave that rating and review. Well, Tim, we had a great national championship game on Monday night. Of course, Big 12 fans were pulling for Houston. You watched that game like all of America did, and your takeaway from the Houston perspective was what?
Well, I mean, obviously, I hurt for Kelvin. We're the same age, by the way. I color my hair; he doesn't. But I'm in television, and he isn't. So I've got an excuse. But the game, I had predicted a Houston victory, and I did so in a little on Brando that I put out, a couple of hours before the game. I really felt that Houston's guards were going to give Florida trouble, and I felt that the inside play could be a wash because as great as the depth is for Florida, the answer that you get from the inside players that are unsung and most of America knows very little about, especially the kid from Monroe, Louisiana. I mean, is he not a stud? I mean, the way he plays defense. And, of course, Roberts is an unsung star, too, even though I think he's more widely known in Big 12 circles. But, the Francis kid, was also outstanding. And I thought the key to the game, and I never liked to go this route in the way the game played out. But when you play and outplay a team as good as Florida 80% of the game until the last 2.5 minutes, you've got control of that game. How did you lose control of the game? Okay. I never like going down the route of officiating, but I have to, because, winning and losing is done by the players and the coaches. Nothing that happens on the floor with an official's call is the difference in whether you win or whether you lose. But the methods that you have to execute to get to the victory, all right, are going to be altered when a game changes on the basis of officiating. And I thought the worst possible thing that happened in that second half was an early technical foul that was called at a time in the game for Florida when it made no sense. It was a horrible technical. Doug Sermons has got a quick trigger. I've followed Doug, and he's a good man. He's just got a quick trigger with technical fouls, always has. I've been doing this for 40 plus years. I always knew which officials were quick to do that. He's one of them. And he nailed the Florida bench with a technical that made no sense. And you could see that it really bothered Todd Golden at the time, and it should have, okay? But what happens in moments like that in high quality games that are being played with a lot of physicality, and that game was, through the first 20 minutes, a grand total of 4 fouls were called. I mean, Pete, we saw hockey checking taking place in that first half with no whistles. And from the time that technical foul was called to the way the game ended, there were 23 fouls called in the second half on a team that was playing with physicality through the first 20 minutes and got away with it. And now all of a sudden, in a span of 9 seconds, Francis and the other transfer big from Monroe, whom I love, they're in foul trouble. They've each got 4 fouls. So now what does Kelvin have to do? He's got to go small. Okay, he's got to go small, which enabled Walter Clayton, who had been shot down. He had 0 at the break. He now is able to dribble drive, get to the 10, and then, because of the threat of his dribble drives, he steps back, they stay in, he gets wide open looks. Next, he knocks down 2 of the most critical shots that you could possibly knock down to aid and abet what was a comeback from 12 down in the second half. The fact that those fouls were called at a time when there were in excess of 14 minutes left in the game really changed the way Kelvin and that team had to defend the game. They could not defend the same way. Roberts was still out there, but I mean, he didn't have the help. Those rim runners, those shot blockers were vital to the defensive play that Houston wanted. Now, they still held them to 65 points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were 33-0 when they held teams under 70. That's a stat that's being widely thrown around in the days since Monday night. But the truth of the matter is, most of those points came on easier shots made available because the game was being whistled in a far different way than it was in the first half. I think that's unfortunate. Again, I don't think any one of those calls had an impact on who wins or who loses, but it impacted strategically the way the game was going to play out from a defensive standpoint. And ultimately, I think it got into the heads of the players. Now, the end of the game, to not get in 4 possessions a shot at the basket, there's your game. The fact that you don't get a shot off in your last 4 possessions, and especially the last 2, when the game is right there for you, you can either tie it or win it. And you had 2 opportunities, and your guards lost a dribble and then, committed, I think one of those moments for Sharp where, a simple shot fake, something he's done a million times, he failed to understand at that critical moment, if I shot fake and I get Clayton up in the air, I'm going to be fine. The closeout by Clayton was really good, but a mere shot fake and you're fine. And I'm thinking about Jay Wright, who's up there on the set, the former Villanova coach, who probably utilized the shot fake with his teams that won 2 national titles in 3 years in 2016 and 18, and thinking, my God, what are the chances that Sharp gets a quality look? Now, it doesn't mean he's going to make it, but at least he gets the shot on goal, right? He gets at least the shot on goal. But in the aftermath of it, I thought that the criticism of Kelvin by many in the mainstream media, and I'll leave you with this. I am sick and tired. I am so pissed off at the way the modern sports media trashes college athletics. The first 2 weeks, first 2 rounds of the tournament, oh, it's terrible. We got Cinderella's dead, NIL and the portal has killed it. Then we've got this unbelievable second week where the Sweet 16 saw these remarkable comebacks. Little or nothing is said about it. And then in the aftermath of this game, let's crucify Kelvin Sampson for simply stating the obvious. It's incomprehensible that we couldn't get a shot. Now, all of a sudden, he's throwing his guys under the bus. That's what the media portrayal of Kelvin is. That is BS with a capital B and S. Those kids love him. I mean, I'm sure Roberts wishes he had made a couple of those bunnies that were given to him that he didn't put in. How about the missed dunks? We can go over and over where points were lost. First half and early second half for Houston. But they controlled that game. But you got to give Florida credit, man. I mean, Golden did a tremendous job in 3 games in this tournament, bringing his team from deficits to win. I mean, I thought what they did with Texas Tech was even more Herculean than what they did on Monday night just to get to the Final Four. So Florida earned it. They deserve it. They won the game. But for Kelvin and for Houston, it is a real difficult pill to swallow to lose the way they lost.
No doubt about it. Now, when you spin this forward, the one thing a lot of people liked about this Houston team, Tim, is they were a team that had been together for a couple of years, and that's a rarity in this current college basketball landscape. We already see the portals open. I mean, a team like the Kansas Jayhawks can't retain more than a couple of players right now. You got players making way more in college than they would ever make in the NBA or the next level.
Yeah.
For a guy that's been doing this for 40 years, is this healthy for the sport, and where does it go from here?
Not without guardrails, and maybe we're going to get them. This is another thing, Pete. Just a couple of hours before the tip of the national championship game, we've got the NCAA president putting out a video talking about the decision that was handed down by a judge about what the share will be in revenue sharing coming up and the impact that that's going to have on the dispersal of revenues from college athletics. I know he's politicking because he's got commissioners in Washington the next day. As you and I tape this Tuesday of this week, that's when several commissioners and athletic directors all descended upon Capitol Hill to try to get some work done with the hopes that the Republicans, who control all 3 branches of government, can get something done to provide some guardrails on the portal and NIL. And I think that maybe we'll move towards that. That's fine. But again, we've got, the NCAA preserving its rear end because they're afraid after 2032 they won't have, control of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, which pays the freight for 80% of all the championships and keeps that posh office in Indianapolis, looking good and sparkling for Charlie Baker and all of his underlings. But I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. Okay. And I don't think that it's healthy necessarily, but it's not the death nail. College athletics hasn't gone to hell. If we didn't learn from watching the way the tournament played out, even after all of the crap that came from the media about Cinderella not being a factor and all of the top seeds moving through and chalk prevailing, what we saw both the week of the Sweet 16 and in this Final Four is that those kids, whether they're getting money or not, are giving their all, playing their butts off, and giving us a tremendous product. It's still the NCAA tournament. The 3 weeks are the best 3 weeks in college athletics. And the Final Four consists of a semifinal Saturday that I think is the best single day in college athletics. I don't give a damn what the helmet heads say about the college football playoff. It's not as great a day as the Saturday semifinals of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. It's not. It's not. And it doesn't always provide for us the kind of games. Those two games, as I said, I've been doing this. I've been going to Final Four since 1981. I missed it this year after being at the Crown in Las Vegas and beating a storm that you're well aware of, being there in Kansas City, that was dipping down into the South as well. My wife was sick, and we couldn't make the trip down to San Antonio, which was really unfortunate. I do work for the NABC, the National Association of Basketball Coaches, emceeing some events for them, including their Champions Brunch on Sunday. I couldn't make it. But that means I've only missed 4 Final Fours since 1981.
Wow.
Okay. I have not seen 2 better games on Saturday at the semifinals, 2 more competitive, compelling basketball games than the 2 I saw last Saturday. And then to have a championship game, usually when you have that, the championship game is then going to be a blowout.
Mm-hmm.
It's either one way or the other. Either the semifinals are dogs and the title game is great. You never have all 3 games that competitive and that good with that much emotion tied to it. So, the NIL and the portal situation, all that we talk about off the floor that seems to be so up in the air, one thing hasn't changed. When the ball tips off, or in football, when the ball kicks, the fans have never had it better. The ratings for television have never been better. And yet, modern mainstream media treats it like dog excrement. It doesn't even talk about it very much after the game, the night of the game, or the next day. We're on to something else. I don't get it. I never have gotten it. Who cares if Malone got fired by the Denver Nuggets? Nobody's watching that league. Nobody. And that's all they talked about the day after the national championship. Modern cable sports television sucks out loud during the day. Embrace debate is embrace, hell, in my opinion, because they don't know, they don't care. I could give them a stat, a very basic stat about this NCAA tournament. Most of them would go, wow, I didn't know that. Really? You didn't know? It's your job. You should know it.
Well, think about this too, and I love it, Tim. But the other problem that ESPN has right now, as we kind of bring this into a media conversation, ESPN spends so much money on that NBA contract. They have got to try to get people into a product that, as you said, they're not interested in right now. I mean, the ratings are terrible, but they're trying to push a product onto their consumer that they just don't want. They're between a rock and a hard place.
Well, they made their bed. They're having to sleep in it.
Yeah.
I have no empathy for the circumstances they find themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, those daytime shows that they have don't have to dwell on that when there are other major shows. Well, I mean, Jay Billis, God bless him, he did a hell of a job in the aftermath of that game with some great intellectual conversation in the aftermath of what happened. But, then the next segment, they're back out talking about, LeBron this and you know, Bronny that. And I mean, I don't get it. I really don't. And somebody's going to have to explain that for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, okay, they're pissed they didn't get the NCAA tournament, and TBS and CBS got together and formed a coalition to keep them from getting it. Okay, but you still cover more college basketball than anybody.
Yeah.
You have the women's NCAA tournament. You have all the other championships that are NCAA under your umbrella. My God, if Fox had some of that, I'd be dying to do some of those championships for them. I would, but they still don't promote it, really don't talk about it. Don't get me started on the College World Series. As great a coverage as they deliver on the games themselves, they don't talk about it during the course of the week. They just don't. I'll say this for our place. Our Embrace debate shows are just as awful. They are. They're just as bad. They're talking about the same stuff. I'm so sick of hearing about where Aaron Rodgers is going to play. I mean, it just makes me sick. Makes me sick. All right. But at least in putting together this event that we just had for the very first time, the Crown, the inaugural Crown, which, by the way, UCF out of the Big 12 made it to the finals. And unfortunately for them, they couldn't hang on. And Nebraska, with superior size, strength, and maturity, won that national championship. We garnered right at just a little bit under 1 million viewers for the first time for that event. That's a significant number in cable television. It is. It's more than they would have normally had on a Saturday when the semifinals of the women's tournament is taking place, or the championship is taking place a little bit later, and of course the men's tournament is going on. This notion that, well, my God, why are you doing that? You just want to kill the NIT? No, we're giving fans of college basketball from Monday through Sunday a chance to watch some live men's basketball at a time when the NCAA tournament is dormant from the end of the regional finals to the start of the Final Four. I thought it was a great idea, and more than anything else, Pete, it allowed us, people that cover college basketball for Fox, a chance to talk college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Not just about the Crown, even though that was the focus of what we were doing, but it enabled guys like Donnie Marshall and so many others, my partner Jimmy Jackson, all of us, to have an opportunity to talk about the Final Four. In the past, after the conference tournaments were over, Fox just basically pulled the plug on all of college basketball. No, there was no discussion of the Final Four anywhere. Certainly, there wasn't going to be any on maybe anybody's show, but Colin Cowherd's. Colin would address it. I don't consider his show Embrace Debate. I think it's a radio show simulcasted on TV, and he tries to cover as many bases as possible. But the rest of that stuff is just blowing the same hot air that they blow over at ESPN. Really
Tim Brando, it is great to have him on. He always tells you how he's feeling. So, Tim, let me ask you this then. It's now the off season for you. You're looking ahead to college football. You got some golf coming up here, some well-deserved downtime. But when does Tim Brando take us behind the curtain? When does Tim Brando start brushing up and looking at college football at a time when, just like basketball, I mean, these teams are turning over at incredible rates?
When I see the schedules come out, okay, and that's usually in July?
Yep.
Early July, the schedules start coming out. And I start kind of mixing and matching. I start thinking it's purely selfish. Okay. I'm thinking, all right, which game may fall to us on that weekend? Okay. So that's part of it. I joke about our business. Okay. In the end, it's all about us. And by us, maybe to some, it means me. It's all about us. So I'm looking at it from that standpoint a little bit. But then fast forward to, I don't get into the spring. I think spring football needs to be, forget about it. Okay. Coaches in the league, Matt Rule's already said no. Lane Kiffin has pretty much said the same thing. I think we need to start the season a lot earlier. I think college football needs to move back in the calendar, and I think college basketball needs to move up in the calendar. TBS has 80% of the ownership of that thing. Why try to shoehorn everything in before the Masters? I think it's a dated policy. We should not have a regular season college basketball game until after Christmas. And we shouldn't have a college football game ending as late in January as it did this past year. No way should the college football playoff be on opposite the divisional round and the wild card weekend of college football. That's a disaster. Okay. The ratings weren't what they should have been. And why? Because they're competing with the NFL. We need to have week 0 on August the 10th, not August the 24th. And if somebody says to me, oh, it's so hot, it's no, hey, listen, I've lived in Louisiana for all but 12 years of my, all but 4 years of my life when I was in Connecticut. It's just as hot on August the 24th as it is on August the 10th. Okay. Yes. If we started the season earlier, Pete, we could finish it either on New Year's Day, where everybody I think would love it, or very close to New Year's Day. So we're not battling with anything other than the end of the regular season of the NFL. The NFL keeps moving their programming further and further into February, and college is going to suddenly continue to try to do that. That makes no sense. So we got a lot of repairing, I think, to do with the calendar in general. But to take you behind the curtain, for me, once we get to August, I'm all in. I am all in on college football. Yeah, I'm still playing some golf, but I am all in on college football. Already looking through every magazine. You know, when we get down to Orange Beach, I've got, and I'm still one of those guys that loves to have the, I love to have Steele's book. Yep. I love to have. I want my my football and my basketball Bibles all by me when I get to the beach. So if I'm not chasing the grandkids, or if I'm not chasing the golf balls, I'm reading. I'm reading everything that I can get my hands on, and the break that I have between now and the end of July and the start of August really gets my battery recharged, because at this stage I'm really doing what I love. I'm passionate, as you know, about college football and about college basketball. And if they want me to do some NFL, as they did last year, I'll step in and work for them if they need the old left-hander to come out of the bullpen.
That's great.
But I'm not as passionate about any pro sports as I am the college game, be it basketball or football, even baseball. I miss the College World Series more than just about any event that I ever was part of in my career. I did 7 of them between 85 and 94 in my 9 years at ESPN. That was just a fantastic event. I follow it too. I'll watch it. And I watch the women's softball. I get into that too, just for entertainment value. I think it's fun. I even played some fast pitch softball until I was about 30, 31 years old before I took up golf. So I'm a fan of watching other people work right now.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Well, Tim, we'll get you back to talk some football, but I have never asked you this question. Of the Big 12 towns and cities out there, do you have a favorite?
Ooh, man. Well, I haven't been to all of them since they've I want to go to Orlando so bad. Okay. When I saw Johnny Dawkins and UCF at the Crown, which I think really did well. I'm not just being a company man. I thought that was a good event, and I think that it'll only grow. Just seeing Johnny reminded me, first game I ever did was a Duke Virginia game in January of '85, over 40 years ago, and Johnny Dawkins was lighting it up, and Duke was number 1. They were a year away from their first Final Four. Now he's coaching at UCF. I think he's done a nice job, and I think the changes now for UCF in football, it's going to be really interesting to see what the second act of Scott Frost will be, in football. So I'm looking forward to making some trips to some new spots with the new world order of Brett Yormark. But among those traditional spots, you really can't do a heck of a lot better than going to either one of these places. Okay. Like, I love going to Stillwater. I dig Stillwater, always have. I think it's a fantastic collegiate environment, always. Pistol Pete's one of my favorites, as those go. In addition to that, I think that the schools in Texas that are still in the league, that are a part of it, TCU, Fort Worth is awesome. You got really all the amenities of a major city in a small town feel. Okay. College small town feel. Downtown Fort Worth is nothing like the Metroplex. In fact, they get mad when you try to bring in the whole Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex and you're talking about TCU. Baylor's another great spot. Since McLean Stadium was built, that thing's got a big time feel about it. They've got the new basketball arena. That's another thing, Pete. Next year, I am so excited that not only in football will we be doing a lot of Big 12, but for the first time, we're going to be doing about 30 to 40 college basketball games, which means rock chalk. I'll get back up to
Yes.
Allen Fieldhouse. It means Manhattan. That's another great spot. Manhattan, Kansas is awesome. I mean, absolutely awesome. Just a great place to be. I've spent a couple of Thanksgiving, post-Thanksgivings there. I have. And going to Snyder Family Stadium is a tremendous place. So, I sound like I'm being a politician by living them all, but it's true. It's just a great environment. I've said this about the Big 12 since I started doing it with Fox, and that is the closest thing to an SEC environment in college athletics, consistently an SEC environment up and down the conference is the Big 12, because the fans love it. It's just a little smaller. Stadiums aren't quite as big. Alumni base and maybe the endowments not quite as big as you'd find in the SEC or the Big Ten, but every town is so caught up with their teams, their schools, and that's what makes it fantastic. And to get back to college basketball in the Big 12, to go to the places that I've been before many, many times, but not in a long while, like IBA Arena. I've not been back in there in a long time. Same with when I was at CBS, I went in there at least twice a year to do Kansas games. And Baylor, that's a whole new show for me. I've not done a Baylor game, obviously, since Scott Drew's been there. And these coaches and Houston, of course, I can't wait to get to Houston for a game. And by the way, that team, I've heard some people say this week, Kelvin's 69. He'll never get there again. I'm 69. I plan on hanging around some too. I don't think he's anywhere close to being done. I know his son's in position to take over, and he probably will be ready sooner than later. But Kelvin's got, he's got to replace those. He's got to replace those bigs, but he's also got, when you think about it, a lot of those guys are coming back.
Yeah,
and the guards, I think, who among the guards out there in the portal wouldn't want to play for a guy like that? I think the culture itself will put him in a position. If you were to ask me now, which team has the best chance of getting back to the Final Four, it would be Houston, not Florida. Florida's got way too much to replace.
Yeah,
in my view, and I think Golden will replace a lot of them, but I think the road to the Final Four again is still pretty damn good for Houston. And Kelvin Sampson. He's one of the younger 69 guys you'll ever meet.
Well, Tim, you enjoy the golf course, my friend. Hit a birdie or two for me if you could. And we always appreciate the conversation here on the show. Thanks so much. Yeah,
that's what I do. Normally I hit birds as opposed to make birdies. That's what I do.
Who you like? Who do you like in the Masters this weekend?
You know what? I'm really rooting hard for Rory.
Okay.
I mean, this time of year, you're always thinking Grand Slam, and he's such a good guy. He put himself out there. I thought with the whole deal going on with Liv, I think he got caught up in that to some extent. I think it was a distraction for him. I think now he said, the hell with all that. I'm going to concentrate on what I need to do. And I do think, by the way, Trump's making headway on bringing Liv and the PGA together, which desperately needs to be done. Yes. I'm not a big Liv guy. I have a hard time watching it. I'm not against the Liv. I just don't. They don't have the hook of a player that's not making much money that just got from the Korn Ferry Tour to the big tour. I want to see those stories. You don't have them in Liv. Everybody's already made millions. That's part of the problem for me. But there is a way to bring those two together, and I think President Trump's working on it, and hopefully he'll get it done. And don't be surprised if we don't see some work done now on Capitol Hill to get those guardrails up, because I know people say, yeah, but you know what? Congress can't get anything done. Well, Congress with Republicans in charge of all three branches might be able to get something done. Wouldn't shock me.
Yep. From your lips, my friend. Tim Brando, great to have you on. Thanks so much for the time as always.
My pleasure, Pete.
All right. I'm Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports, where you find us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, always on the podcast. And, of course, always grateful for our radio affiliates. Have a great day.